Hey, I'm Heath Mullican, and I am joined by Tony Casey. And on the line, we've got Pastor Dave Johnson, the pastor of Neighborhood Christian Fellowship in California. And today, the three of us are going to try to summarize the Wesleyan General Conference. To be totally honest, we've gotten a lot of new equipment. And so this test call is really just to see what we've got, make sure everything's working properly. So that when we get to June, everything goes off without a hitch.
And we were supposed to have Kim Gladden with us.
Right.
She's going to be one of the co-hosts at General Conference. Now, Kim just recently got back from Haiti and had a conversation with her on the phone this morning, and she's just really under the weather. And so we gave her a pass on today. But we got to be with her this past year, and so we have a video here. Watch this, and you'll get to know her a little bit.
Tony and I and Matthew just met Kim Gladden here at Eastern Hills Wesleyan Church. What's the name of this town? Is it considered Buffalo?
Williamsville, but Buffalo's close enough.
We're getting ready to work together for General Conference, and we're trying to just do some things, some activities to get to know one another. And we're about to play everybody's favorite game, Two Truths and a Lie. So nothing builds trust, friendship, like lying to somebody.
Okay, so here we go.
That's a lie.
Yeah. When my grandma Casey died in 1977, she died never knowing what it was to have hot running water in the house. My wife Sherry said to me when I first asked her to marry me, no. As a kid, I spent most of my time fishing.
I don't think Tony went fishing. In all of our talking, I mean, Tony's talked about hunting squirrels and eating squirrels, but he's never talked about fishing. He lived in Wisconsin. It's always frozen there.
That is a lie. The thaw happens in October.
I'm going to say number one. I'm going to say that your grandmother not having running water.
Kim gets it right. That is the truth. That is the truth. I fished all the time, man. If I had an extra time, that's awesome that she got it right and that you got it wrong.
I almost drowned in the Indian Ocean. Camels were offered for me in the deserts of Israel.
Oh, wait. When you say camels were offered for you, like...
in marriage.
Oh.
I was held at gunpoint at a military installation in Kenya.
Oh my
word.
So I feel like I just haven't lived.
But which one's the lie?
I'm going to say the camels.
Now, why would you say that? You don't believe someone would offer a camel?
No, I'm not saying
Wait a minute.
You need to run the camera, Matthew.
Yeah, I'll go with the camel because I would think.
Oh.
Yeah.
You just don't want to be way behind if you're wrong.
No, I'm just saying that.
That you're wrong. Camels were offered for me.
How many?
I don't remember how many, but all I know is if I tried that again now, there would probably be significantly less.
You don't understand the lack of adventure I've had in my life. I'm not a good liar when I'm having to do it on purpose. So I had a brother that played college tennis. I saw the last game of the last four Clemson coaches before they were fired or they quit. And when I was a child, I overcame a very bad stuttering problem.
Oh, Heath, no.
I'm going to say the stuttering problem. I'm going to say that that's not true.
I could believe that you were the kiss of death for Clemson coaches. But I think the Clemson coach thing is a lie.
Kim, you're right. I have never stuttered.
So, just to fill everybody in on where we stand, Kim has 2 points. Heath and Tony have 0, which means it's impossible, just about, to come back from this.
When I was a kid, I had a dog named Snoopy. When I was in the 6th grade, I made the finals of the Saturday Night Fever dance contest. If I wasn't in ministry today, I probably would be in food services.
Who has a dog named Snoopy, right?
I'm just saying, man, you won a dance-off? You were part of a dance-off?
I made the finals.
lie.
I'm gonna say what was the third one?
If I wasn't in ministry today, I'd be in food services.
That's what I'm gonna say.
So that's the lie.
I'm gonna say that's the lie.
The lie is that I was in no dance contest whatsoever.
Heath is on the scoreboard.
If your lives depended on me dancing, everyone would be in big trouble.
So wait, you would be in food service?
I'd be food, man, cooking. If I said a cook, you would know right away that I said food services.
Ah, see, even in your truth, you were a big
Number one, I love cruising so much that I went on a 21-day cruise. I lost 60 pounds last year. I attended a pastor's writing conference in Louisville, Kentucky.
See, you're pulling us in on a weight thing. That can only get us in trouble.
She said that I wasn't worthy of camels.
No.
This relationship is off to a great start.
She didn't almost drown in the Indian Ocean.
That's
so maybe she's cool with the water, and so she was like cruising. When she first said I like cruising so much, I was thinking,
1957 Chevy. I'm thinking the same thing.
Okay, this little.
I'm gonna say no 21-day cruise. Okay. No, that's the lie.
All right.
I don't think she lost 60 pounds. Not that you wouldn't have the ability.
You can only dig yourself in a hole here. Heath. Go ahead, keep
I
talking.
would just leave it alone, Heath.
All right.
Actually, I did go on a 21-day cruise.
No.
But I didn't lose 60 pounds. You're right.
So it was a tie game. Kim won. Heath won. Kim could come away with the win. If she can guess Heath's lie.
One of my legs is longer than the other.
You do kind of waddle when you walk.
That would explain.
My father is an Angus beef farmer, and I have appeared in multiple films.
Oh, Heath, I don't know.
Boy, my win is resting on this. So I'm going to say that your father's not an Angus beef.
What do you count as a film?
Yeah. You know, like major movie.
Or
Like we go to the theater and see you? That kind of film?
Some.
Okay, that's a lie.
My father is an Angus beef farmer.
Oh.
Okay.
I have been in multiple films. I was in the movie Eddie with Whoopi Goldberg in a crowd scene, and then I was I actually had a speaking part in a wrestling documentary. Both of those had world premieres.
Wrestling, that's not real. You can't
It was a
have that.
documentary.
But didn't you say multiple?
That multiple too.
Whoa,
That's
we have
a little
really.
misleading.
That's pretty.
One leg. My legs are the same.
Yeah.
So the waddling, where does that
The
come
waddling is from a sciatic nerve
sorry.
issue I'm having.
All right, so we ended with a tie.
Winning with the tie.
The
So
2-2 tie between Kim and Heath. Congratulations.
Did Tony even
Tony
score?
didn't even
No,
play.
you guys can lie to me all day long.
You know, we wanted to play this game so that we could get to know each other, and we hope that you've gotten to know us a little bit as well. And we cannot wait till June 2016 when we live stream General Conference. You're going to have the opportunity, if you're at home, not just to watch the festivities, but there will be a chat room, and we will look forward to interacting with you and getting to know you a little bit better. It is going to be just a great, great time. So for Tony and Kim and Matthew T.G., this is Heath Mullican, and we'll see you soon. So we want to bring Dave in. Dave, this is your first General Conference as a delegate. So talk about what that's been like. That number one, your name comes up to the district conference. Number two, you hear the votes cast for your name, and the realization when you received your packet in the mail. What's that been like for you?
Well, it's a large chunk of information, an overwhelming chunk of information, really. I mean, you obviously know the ones that come up at your district conference, the memorials, but just all the information. There's no context for it. So you're reading through it, and you've got to be. We were just talking a little before the call. You got to be really, really careful.
Yeah.
When you read this stuff, because one word can make a difference, and we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
But
My thing,
intimidating.
yeah, when we were talking earlier, is this whole thing about it's just overwhelming, isn't it? In terms of the number of memorials and everything you have to figure out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
You show them your notebook. Yeah, just put the notebook up there by the camera, man.
Well, this came out in a digital copy, but I had our office manager. Had a couple plane rides, so I said, "Hey, would you print this out for me?" And I just because I like to write notes a whole lot more, and still I haven't even gone through all of this yet.
Well,
so there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, our goal today isn't to go through all the memorials, but it is to discuss some of them. Probably, the big one has to do with the membership and what they're proposing here. You talked about how overwhelming these things get. This one gets overwhelming right away because it talks about taking something out of constitutional law into statutory law. And that gets really complicated. But the idea here is that with constitutional law, it's a lot harder to change it. It's the governing laws of the organization. In the United States, it's the Constitution where literally, and I mean, you just can't add things to the Constitution. Every state has to vote on it, and it's the same way with constitutional law in the Wesleyan Church. Matter of fact, this whole membership thing has to pass by a 2/3 majority at General Conference, and then it has to go to every district and pass by a 2/3 majority. Because it's constitutional law. What will happen is if all that passes, it will come out of constitutional law into statutory law, meaning that the General Conference can now vote on that. It doesn't need to then go on to the district conferences and stuff.
So very quickly, okay, not even for the people at home, but for a country bumpkin like me, I understand. So what would be the difference between constitutional and statutory? Just sum that up.
Statutory law statutory law is again, it's just under constitutional law. There are some things that, if you look at the Constitution of the United States, we have amendments. There are certain laws we don't add to the Constitution. What we do is we say, okay, here's a constitutional principle, and freedom of expression. So now from that, we make statutory laws. All right. So if we're going to be obedient in this area, what laws of the land? And we codify them, right? We have literal laws. So if you do this, then it's tied to the Constitution in this particular area.
Gotcha.
So it's under constitutional law. So let's just jump into the membership thing here. I mean, how would you guys express how membership would change under this one?
All right, so we're talking about, for those of you following at home, we're talking about Memorial 64.
64, and then there are ones that follow from that.
Right. So what we're basically...
We've had covenant and community membership, and that's the way that it's worked up to this point. And
also, just added, you have student membership, which is for students who are under the age of 16,
right?
That they can be members of the church, non-voting members, but still have all the other rights of membership. What this does is, like you said, it takes the membership commitments from one part. Correct me if I'm wrong. From one part of the discipline to another part of the discipline.
So look at it this way: we've had community and covenant membership. If you were going to be a leader in the church, you had to be a covenant member, and there are certain lifestyle commitments and holy living. I mean, these things that we say, yes, my life matches that. Ergo, I can be a covenant member. And then community membership is, again, tied to lifestyle issues where, well, maybe, you don't measure up to all of those, but when it comes to the articles of religion, you're there, you're in agreement. The memorial that's coming is basically, I like to say it this way, wide gate for church membership. So you get rid of the covenant community, wide gate for church membership. But all of these lifestyle issues, commitments to holy living, and as that is parsed out in the discipline, those now become leadership requirements. So it's the same membership for everyone,
Right.
but to be a leader, you have to follow these commitments
To be an elected leader.
in the local church.
Right. So let's get where the rubber meets the road here, Dave.
Sure.
We're in that church conference season, and nominating committee are meeting. How does something like this affect you? You're sitting there with your nominating committee. Do you have a list? I mean, we do. I mean, we have a list of our covenant and community members. How would this affect somebody like you? When I talk to a lot of young pastors, they simply don't have a deep pool of covenant members, people who have, chosen to commit to those lifestyle commitments. So how would this affect somebody like you in the local church?
Sure. Yeah, let me say a couple things about that. One, we don't have a deep pool of covenant members precisely for the reason of the abstinence of alcohol. And they've said to me during membership classes, well, we like all this. I mean, almost exactly what Tony was saying is, we're totally there on the membership commitments, but because I enjoy a glass of wine with dinner or a beer or something like that, I can't sign on to be a member. And you're almost thinking like, wow, that kind of integrity is sort of the person that you want on leadership, but except for the lifestyle thing, So it's sort of like this, I guess in the olden days, maybe you just wouldn't say that. I don't know, and you would just go forward. But so we have a smaller pool because people have self-selected out of membership as a result of that. But what we do, we sit in my office and I have like a little, of course they need to be a covenant member, but some of them, that membership class might have been so long ago that they forget what those are about. And maybe I sideline the discipline a little bit, and I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but I've got like just a little leadership covenant, and it's actually a lot of it's out of the discipline. And I just say, hey, you've been nominated to be voted on, and so if you're going to do that, here's the things we expect as a board member, and so we're already kind of functioning this way already. We're saying, if you're a leader, then it's abstinence from alcohol. If you're a leader, then it's this, sure, this, and that,
Yeah.
And so if your name is we want you to know what it entails for your name to be presented to the church.
Right.
And then we tell the church, like, you can nominate from the floor, but we also want you to know that, like, some people may have been nominated and have self-selected out.
Yeah.
And so just be careful to really talk to the person you want to nominate first.
Right.
Yeah, I want to be careful here because I should have done prep beforehand. But when you get into covenant and community membership, remember that there are some privileges that covenant membership has that community doesn't in terms of voting. And I just don't remember what they are. So now with a one-tier membership, you would be able to vote on anything.
Well, I thought that had changed.
Okay. Well,
because when I just had my pastoral vote last year, everybody was allowed to vote because we had redone our membership.
Yeah, well, here again.
Right.
I didn't have a chance to do my homework on that, so you might be right.
Yeah, like I'm under the impression that changed maybe 8 years ago. I'm just throwing numbers out there. But, we had just a really unique situation probably 4 or 5 years ago where we had a gentleman who was a community member but kind of saw the leadership vacuum in our church. And, he was a committed member of our church and came to me and said, I really feel like I need to step up and be a covenant member so I can be in leadership. And it was just really cool. And he has been one of our strongest elected, not just a leader, but one of our strongest elected leaders. And, it was just this great conversation to have. He's like, I'm just going to do this because I feel like this is what I need to do.
Go ahead, Dave, and then I'll.
So I have a historical question because part of the problem of being a first-time delegate is it's actually my first time even at General Conference. I watched your guys' live stream last time, but it's my first time there even this year. And so what I have a question is context and historical context. In the past, has changing a constitutional item been a really big deal? Have districts essentially said, okay, the General Conference has gone for this, we're going to ratify it, or is it really difficult? Like what I'm saying is there really a need to change this to statutory, or is this a core constitutional item? I don't know.
Yeah, you raise a really good question, and I don't have a good answer for that. And maybe at General Conference, maybe that's going to be part of the debate, that membership shouldn't move out of the constitutional part of it. I rather think that this is a good move into the statutory section of the discipline. But again, I mean, I'd be interested to hear the debate on that. I mean, we're going to be there covering it, and so for us, we have a lot of things we're doing, but we're going to be intent during the debates, and it may be a time when we're kind of swayed back and forth on that. I don't know, Dave. You raise a great question. Yeah. Maybe that in itself is a point of debate. I know that, my first time as a delegate to General Conference was at the Grand Rapids General Conference. I don't know, that had been 2000 probably, somewhere there about 2000, 2004. And I remember taking the conference floor and just making the observation. And by the way, let's just talk, you want to talk about his historical perspective. Every general conference that I've ever gone to has brought up membership issues. We continue, and so I'm speaking for the last 20 years. Yeah. That's my window. And I remember taking the floor at Grand Rapids and just saying, it seems to me, in the book of Timothy, as Paul is addressing this whole thing, he seems to make a very broad gate for people to come into the church, but a narrow gate for leadership. I see this legislation as honoring that. Yeah. And here's where some of us struggle, and I'm going to speak for myself. Here's where some of us struggle at times. If you have a background, first, if you know the history of the Wesleyan Church and the holiness movement in particular, we were really good about going into the bad parts of cities. And we were concerned about people who were alcoholics. And of course, that was the main drug of, over a century ago that people got hooked on. And so we went into these areas. We were teetotalers. And we wanted to see people come out of that. And so we have a history of that, and great stories of people coming out of that, taking a strong stand against alcohol. Add to that the whole temperance movement of the early part of the last century. And so there are a segment of people we don't want to see us compromise on anything and give ground. The other side of that argument is this, that people say, yes, but in Scripture, there doesn't seem to be a scriptural argument for abstinence, total abstinence. Now, Proverbs says, hey, if you want to live safe, don't even look to the wine when it's red. In other words, avoid it. But here's where Scripture is abundantly clear. That's on the issue of drunkenness.
Right.
Sure.
And so you have, as I see it, and this is the way I've seen it at General Conference in the past, and I expect it's going to come down to this at General Conference this year. And the one group don't want to see us compromise. Let's hold the line on this. Another group will say, but is the line a biblical line? And it's a fair question. The biblical line is drunkenness. Yeah. No wiggle room there. So I think that's where the debate's going to come down. Yeah. I really do.
And, you even see it biblically in the Old Testament. There's the Nazirite vow, which was, a vow not to drink and things of that nature. But also, that line, the question I have too, and I'm confronted with this a lot, and you confront them with this a lot in the church is, all right, so we have a law, it's like we put down the law, no drunkenness. And then what we do is we say, okay, let's draw a big circle around it and put a fence around the law. And we say, okay, as to not to come close to the line, we're going to put a fence up. And then we're going to say no drinking. And so we build these fences around the law. And to me, true holiness is the freedom in Christ issue.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I agree. Drunkenness is absolutely wrong and unbiblical. But on the other hand, it's like, shouldn't we allow people to choose that? I mean, we're probably getting sidelined on a tangent. This will come up.
Yeah, I think for me, again, I mean, drunkenness, there's no wiggle room with Scripture there. Our problem is this. I think Matthew Teej and I had a conversation, I think it was with him, that one of the things that Scripture doesn't address is distilled liquor. I mean, we live in the day and age of distilled liquor, and so now when you have a drink that has natural alcohol in it, it takes a lot more to get drunk than distilled liquor. You know, you can get some little shots that'll just take you out. Add to that now opiates.
Right.
Sure.
And especially in this country, epidemic proportion of prescription opiates that people are getting hooked on. And so it's easy to categorize things and say, do that, don't do that. This is where law gets easy. Because if the speed limit is 55 and you're going 56, we got you. So I think this is where the debate's going to come down on the conference floor. That's all I'm trying to get at.
I had a non-Christian friend ask me, we were talking about alcohol and stuff and Wesleyan views on it. And he said, so let me get this straight. He said, probably 75% of your church has a prescription for antidepressant or something to help calm their nerves. But when I drink a beer when I get home to cool down, I'm the sinner. I'm like, yeah.
These are exactly the conversations that are had behind the scenes that inform legislation like this.
Right.
And so, like, if anyone sees this, and we're not broadcasting this far and wide, but my family history, alcoholism.
Right.
Am I comfortable with being a teetotaler? I want you to know that I'm totally comfortable with it.
Yeah.
At the same time, I think that the side that says, "But wait a minute, is that a biblical line?"
Right.
I think it's valid, and this is why you have general conference. It's what it's about. This is where we get together as a church and we talk it out. Okay, let's move on from that one. Another memorial here, interesting one, and we just kind of cherry pick these things.
Yeah.
Interesting one, Memorial 62 on the gifts of the Spirit.
Right.
Sure.
So, I mean, I feel like I kind of dominated that last one there. I certainly have opinions on this, but any thoughts here?
So, first of all, let's say if you're watching this memorial came from Dave's district, so I'll look to Dave in a minute to kind of give us some background on it. But it is not recommended, and it's essentially talking about changing some of the language in the discipline that talks about some of the gifts of the Spirit. So, Dave, as much as you can or feel comfortable with, what's kind of some of the background on even the debate you guys had on your conference floor?
Sure. Well, first, I think one of the things we need to say is in our district, we're really seeing this revitalization of the gifts of the Spirit. Okay. I mean, we're seeing people being healed, and we're hearing about different things. Like, for example, our district superintendent, Phil Stevenson, was in Cuba this year, and they were praying over a woman, another pastor in our district named Jim, praying over a woman in Cuba who had a hard time walking. All of a sudden, she stood up and walked. And just Phil has this on cell phone video. Just amazing stuff has been happening, not just in our district in Cuba.
That will make an impact on you. I'm just saying right now.
Yeah, and that does make an impact on you. And so I think part of this is to say, okay, well, early on, and there's a lot of history in this, especially of you see the founder of the Nazarene Church is mentioned in the whole preamble to all this, and of course he was a pretty charismatic guy. Wesley was a pretty I hesitate to use the word charismatic because some people might think he had the Spirit on him. Wesley, right. We'll say that. I think one of the things we're seeing is a revitalization of this in our district, and so a lot of people have been asking questions, and therefore this came about. Now, I was not a part of writing this. The first time I really saw this was on emails when it was sent out before we had our district conference. And so I read it. And some ways I like it because the Methodist Church is a little bit known, or Wesley Arminian theology at least is a little bit known for leaning more towards cessationism, which is kind of ridiculous if you read the Bible. That's almost like deism. And so you want to be really careful with that line. And so I think it's good on one element in that it's bringing it out, but also I'm a little confused by it still. And I think the passing of this was sort of like, well, yeah, we agree with the works of the Spirit, and we pretty much agree with this, but I was still confused by language. But we never really resolved that or worked it out, and we just sent it on to see what the rest of the church says about it. I guess I'm sure there's some crafters of this that would love to speak into it, and I am not, so I don't know.
So let's look at how this whole system works. So what's the difference between a memorial that is recommended and one that's not recommended? So what happens is a year before the General Conference, so in 2015, local churches at the local church conference could work on a memorial, work on things like this. They ratify it at their local church conference. It then goes to the Conference Action Committee, who's going to talk about it.
District Conference Action Committee.
District Conference Action Committee that will take it to that will or may not take it to the district conference.
Well, and let's say this: they all go to the district conference.
Okay, they do.
The Conference Action Committee at the district level will either say this is recommended or it's not recommended.
Right.
If it's not recommended, so we did this when I pastored Golden Grove. We had a memorial. We sent to the district conference. It was not recommended. I stood and I said, Mr. Chairman, I move the reading of the motion. These are not read unless someone if they're not recommended, they're not read. Okay. So it was read. Eventually, it passed. Eventually, it made it to the district. It made it to General Conference, and it passed the General Conference.
Wow.
Yeah, but
do you remember what it was?
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I remember definitely what it was, but I won't get into all that. We can. Matthew's goading me back here to get into it. It was basically this, that we had a great deal of indebtedness here, and as a young pastor, we raised some money, like $10,000 in 1 year, to go towards that indebtedness, and then I realized that we had to pay budget on that.
Yeah.
And so our memorial was, let's not have to pay budget on stuff like that. If we're raising to get out of debt, let's encourage churches to do that. And if you have a capital campaign to do that. And so that eventually made it all the way to General Conference. We let our memorial die. We didn't ask for the reading. We liked another district's reading. So, but this here, you have the Conference Action Committee at the district level. Then you have that at the general level. And so the one you were talking about here on Gifts of the Spirit, it comes not recommended. So it will not get read at General Conference unless someone asks the chair to have it read.
So all right, so let me ask this question, okay? And let's get into the politics a little bit. I mean, if we can.
Do you have the money for that? No.
But what I'm asking is, are there conversations amongst district people to say, hey, Bob, you going to...
There absolutely are.
Okay.
We did that at General Conference. We saw another district's wording that we liked better, so we went up to them and we said, ours is before yours. We're not going to ask that it be read. We're going to let it die, but we're getting behind you.
Yeah.
And then, so they asked for theirs to be read. And so and I'll be honest with you, we had someone here at the local church. I nominated them as a lay delegate at the for the district conference. I was on the nominating committee, so I was,
General Conference.
For general, I was on the nominating committee of the district. I recommended this layperson from our church because I wanted someone from our church to be at the general conference to speak on this issue.
Wow.
So is there negotiating? You better believe there's negotiating that goes on.
So you talked about that memorial you were talking about was talking about money. So let's talk about.
Let's go back. I want to go back to this gifts of the Spirit. Let's talk about
this one.
Okay.
Yeah, the gifts of the Spirit thing. So, Dave, I am so with you on this one. I go back and forth on this one. It's not recommended, so it probably won't get read. But we were so reactionary in the 70s and the 80s against tongues. And in this, what's interesting is there's history in this memorial, the way it's written. It talks about that. So much so that we almost have acted like it just never happened. Now, that's extreme, but it's to say this, that God, that was a gift that was used back in the first century church, never to be used again.
Right.
Which is really strong language. And also in this memorial, they make the historical point that in our movement, I mean, holiness is purity and power. In our movement, we've gone after the purity and kind of left the power alone.
Sure.
The power of the Holy Spirit. And so this memorial wants to recapture the power aspect of this. And I think it's, I think, I'm talking very personally, I think it's a valid criticism for our movement.
Yeah.
Purity without power. And the Holy Spirit, when the Spirit came to do both. And so this is a memorial that kind of weakens our language, our strong language against tongues, and encourages demonstration. Now, the fear of that is the fear of every pastor, right?
Right.
And that is, what do I do? And this memorial, I think where its weakness is it's like, and we'll leave it up to every pastor to kind of, decide if it's getting too unruly.
Well, yeah, it says the ordained or commissioned ministers. Can I bring up another point in this memorial that just it leaves room for question, and I don't know exactly what it means, and I wish we had somebody who framed the memorial to be able to speak into it. But essentially, it's changing a paragraph in the discipline, and then it says in the very first part where it's changed, the Wesleyan Church believes in the miraculous use of known languages and the interpretation of known languages in its biblical and historical setting in Acts chapter 2. Now, it uses that phrase, known languages. So I'm guessing Greek, Aramaic, languages that we would know. So there's a miraculous use of those that, like, all of a sudden I'm speaking Spanish to a Spanish speaker.
Yes.
But then it continues and says that we also recognize the private prayer language. I have to find that.
It's right. It's
line 30.
Yeah, we recognize
30,
that
31.
a private prayer language is between God and one praying. So they're saying we only recognize known languages, and then they're saying, but there's also a private language. It's almost contradictory, and I just.
Well, I think they're talking about.
I don't know what that.
I think they're talking about one public and one is private. I think that's the difference. That in public, we believe in the miraculous use of known languages and the interpretation of those language, and in a private setting, that there is the possibility, the biblical foundation for a private prayer language that would not be.
Yeah, these are just two, Dave, these are just two categories that you almost see Paul creating in the book of Corinthians.
Sure.
He talks about a prayer language, and then you see the speaking in tongues. And so, on this, I just see them kind of using those categories on this memorial.
I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be honest. We have a lady in our church, and when we do our spiritual gifts assessment, one of her spiritual gifts is the gift of tongues. Now, it is in a private prayer language. And, it's never been in a public thing. She just says, I pray in tongues. And like for me, somebody like her, I can go to her and say, hey, I want you to know that we affirm your spiritual gift, that, and like, that's one, she loves our church because we didn't when she said that, hey, we didn't put her off to the side. And so I do appreciate some of this. Again, it's not recommended. Somebody would have to ask for it to be read.
We've gotten to these conversations. I chair the DBMD here, and every so often you have a candidate who says, I do not practice tongues in terms of a public display, but in my devotions,
right?
A prayer language. So, and this memorial is touching on that. All right, we can go ahead.
Okay.
The next one.
So yours was talking about money. So Memorial 355. We were just talking about. We're not going to get into it, but as we were reading this, Tony and Dave are seeing it, and they're thinking that the entire basis for the USF budget is about to change. We're all scrolling. Dave is flipping to his page. but there is one word that we had overlooked.
Hey, give the memorial number. It's
Memorial 355.
355. Yeah.
Fuddy dud. I can't. There it is. So at the end it says the base income shall be the total income of a local church and all the departments for the previous fiscal year, less money received. Well, we kind of overlooked that word less.
The word less, right?
Meaning it's not going to include. And then it lists loans and sales and grants and money from a will and money from daycare center and investment earnings and designated fund. So basically, it would have undone the way we read it. Would have undone your memorial.
Yeah. So Dave's thinking, wow, it's adding all this stuff to the budget. I look at it real quick and like, wow, he's right. And then I look and it's recommended. And I thought, we are reading this wrong.
Yeah.
And Heath, you get the gold star, man, because this is why we need your brain.
I was an English minor for a semester. So my grasp
for one semester.
My grasp of the nuances of the English. Now, let me ask you this. While we're kind of joking, for those of you who are delegates, and the question I get, why the wording, the whereas, be it resolved? Tony, there's a reason we got to do all that, right?
Yeah, I don't know what it is. It's so that the language is specific. Part of this is historical, all the whereases.
Right.
We come out of an era where, but it is so your language is specific. And I'm not going to, please don't ask me, we're not going to pick on any district or anybody.
Right.
But when you see some of these memorials, I saw a couple that I would just be embarrassed. Like if I would stand on the conference floor and to say, well, if that memorial is going to the Conference Action Committee of the Wesleyan Church, the General Church, then let's clean that up a little bit.
Right.
Because it needs to be professional, and it needs and things are worded specifically, and so one word makes a huge difference. In this case, it was the word less.
Yeah. So there's one, we didn't put this in our show notes. There's one on gender identity. Well, if you go and read through the memorial, it does all these whereases talking about gender identity and things like that. And the resolved is talking about gambling. And so it's somebody on the Wesleyan website, they're allowing comments, and several of the comments have said, hey, this resolved.
Why is that there?
So, I mean, I'm thinking it's just a typo or a mistake or things like that. And that's one of the reasons they send these packets out to all these delegates, and it's posted online. I was looking at one, and there was just half a parentheses, and I was waiting for the end of the parentheses, and it never came. And I'm like, okay. So.
Well, there was one I was reading. I'm not going to say what it was, but as I read it, I actually talked to Matthew T.G. and I said it's sloppy in the way that it's written. It's I would just expect, again, if that was coming out of my district, I would just stand up and just say, hey, we need to clean this up at least. Even if I don't support it personally, we can clean up the language so that at least it looks professional.
Yeah. So one thing, Dave, you were talking about this is going to be your first general conference. 4 years ago was my first one. And I gained a whole new respect for the people, for the discipline committee, the memorial committee, the people who do have that gift of wording these things and understanding it and know how to place the sentence in a legal way. And it was just I remember it was something that Jerry Pence was doing, and he just had this great gift for like just that. Oh. Like I said, my brain doesn't work like that.
I'm telling you, the best I ever saw in my lifetime was Dr. Lee Haynes.
Right.
Oh my word, that guy. He knew parliamentary law.
Right.
He knew he literally wrote the discipline. Okay, so like
yeah.
he literally. I mean, he was the guy you always turned to. He would write and draft things. That guy, he was my favorite chair because he just. I mean, he knew the whereases and the resolves, and he knew the language. And someone could stand up at district conference and say something, and he'd say something like, and he was very gracious. Well, that's a wonderful idea, brother. But however, that is out of order, and so we can't do that.
Yeah.
Well, Well, it'd be really nice for a guy like me. You guys are just throwing out history right there. And this is context that I just don't have.
Yeah.
It'd be really great if some of these committees actually set up a webinar and just said, hey, we're going to just teach you how to read this stuff and go through it for all the delegates. That would be really helpful.
Yeah, I think so some of the danger is I think that there are just a few of us who get kind of, I don't even have the right language here, but we find some interest in that and kind of gravitate to it, but that's a small majority. Most people are. I mean, what you just said reflects the majority, Dave. A lot of people look at that and they see it as legalese, and let's be honest, all of us, we live in a litigious society where a lot of us are weary of. Matthew was talking about a comedian who went off on this whole thing. You get electronic box and there's this packet in it, and it says "do not eat."
Yeah.
And so the comedian's like, are there really people who grab that, and say, "Oh wow, I got a snack with my electronic here, my electronical device"? Well, but the lawyers make them put that on there.
Yeah. Because silica gel is very tasty. I'm just saying.
All right, let's hasten on to this last memorial. This is one I actually love this, and we weren't going to discuss it today. Was it you, Heath, or Dave?
Yeah, I just thought it was
I think
one of those
Heath that
it's
pulled
the
this one up.
last one, and would not seem like a big deal. But you, being the chairman of the DBMD.
Yeah, so you have times when people have to surrender their credentials, and we always think of that as it's some shady thing. Sometimes it's because they're just without appointment. They haven't been appointed for the discipline allows you 4 up to 5 years without appointment. But after that, you have to turn your credentials in.
Yeah. And so when you hear the term surrender your credentials, physically, they are surrendering their credentials.
They are surrendering their certificate of ordination.
Yeah.
What this memorial is saying is, and here's the problem. Here's what people say. Okay, you need to surrender your credentials. I can't find them.
Dog ate my homework.
I can't find that certificate. Now, first, I'm always mystified by that because, to me, it's a very cherished document. Yeah. So it's on display in my office. It will always be one of those things on display. It's a cherished. But some people, I don't know where it is. I was lighting a fire. I needed a starter. I don't know what they do with these. But this is what they say. I can't find it. So this memorial says that as they present the resolve is that paragraph 6280 and 6300 of the discipline be edited by placing the following statement on the certificates of ordination or commission. This certificate is valid only when accompanied by a currently dated pocket certificate of standing. This is beautiful because they can say, well, I didn't find my certificate, and they could go to another body and say, oh, I'm in good standing with the Wesleyan Church.
I'm ordained, right?
Now the certificate says, this isn't valid unless you see a pocket credential, which is renewed every year. Yeah.
And I can't, I don't know where my pocket credentials are for this year.
Do you know where your certificate of ordination is?
It's in my office. I never even took out of the plastic case
there you
that
go.
It came with.
So let's put pressure on Dave. Dave, do you know where your certificate of ordination is?
Yeah, in fact, I could show it to you guys. Right?
Hey!
That's awesome. There it is.
Yes!
It's the one right next to the cross right up there.
This is my point.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I told the guys before we start broadcasting, don't get real personal, give you personal opinions. So here I'm violating it. I really don't understand people who say, oh, I can't find that document at all. I don't know what I did with it.
Now, I don't know where my district license, the paper license, I don't know where that is.
Your pocket credential, you mean?
No. When I got licensed as a licensed minister.
I
got
Isn't that irrelevant once you've become ordained?
Yeah,
it is.
Right.
But
right.
We're
talking about certificates of ordination. People, people. I think know where they are.
Personally, I do the DBMD in our area. We do zones.
Right.
In fact, I've got a DBMD meeting tonight with some of our students, and I like this idea because exactly. I mean, you could go anywhere and say, "See, I'm ordained in the Wesleyan Church," and they could use essentially. All right, so we had a pastor a couple years back. who had a moral failure, and he is not returned to the Wesleyan Church and not gone through everything he was supposed to go through. And I don't know where he is or what he's doing. I don't know if he's actually physically surrendered that document. But if he hasn't, he could go anywhere and use our good name to go in somewhere, and people don't know anything about the history.
So this is one of the reasons that I joined the Wesleyan Church. I grew up Baptist. I love the Baptist denomination. I joined the Wesleyan Church because I knew when I got ordained by the Wesleyan Church, I got ordained by the worldwide Wesleyan Church. I wasn't ordained simply by a local body, but that my ordination, my gifts, whatever, that was recognized by this larger church. And you see this a lot in guys who feel called to ministry, and they have no denominational ties, and they start a little non-denominational church. And there's no, our denomination, there is accountability, and there are expectations, and there are commitments that we make. And I am so appreciative of that as a minister, that to know you can't just be all loosey-goosey. This is serious ministry that we.
Yeah, it's a spiritual formation process. It means something in our denomination. As you said, Dave, this memorial, it comes recommended. It's brilliant. It's a great memorial, and it's wonderful that it's just right there on the certificate. So you go show it somewhere else, and it says, "Hey, this isn't valid if you don't see a pocket credential."
Right. So last question that has to do with this memorial we just discussed, Memorial 1090. This one appears to be written by the Committee on Memorials. Dr. Wayne Macbeth is the secretary for that. Is the Denominational Committee on Memorials, are they allowed, and perhaps they did and I just don't know about it, are they allowed to come up with their own stuff, or does it have to start in a district?
No, it doesn't have. So let me talk at the district level. It doesn't have to start in the local church. It can start at the DBA level. The DBA can have one and send it to the Conference Action Committee. So please don't hold me to this. My guess is that the GBA, the General Board, could do the same thing and send it to the committee. But please don't.
You heard it here, folks. Tony Casey.
That's my quick answer to that. One of the things that's been neat, we were talking here with Dave and Heath, that this is really causing us to get into discipline and kind of get a little education on how all this works.
So in all seriousness to that, excuse me, the discipline, free for download. I have it PDF on my computer. So if you are a delegate, I highly recommend.
Why are you selling it for 50 cents on your website?
50 cents. That's supposed to have some more zeros.
One of the things I like about this 1091 is that it takes something we're already doing and it's really simple. There's a simple process. There's not anything that needs to be rolled out. It just, all you have to do is add a couple words and you're done. That's what I like. Memorials that are nice and clean, and you're like, oh, that's a no-brainer.
Now, do I have to turn in my old ordination certificate and have
Hey, Dave, there's a question that needs to be asked on the general conference floor.
And Tony will show you the appropriate voice in which to share.
If you guys want to send me one of those like little nude earpieces that no one knows I'm wearing, and you could be like, Dave, ask this question. Then I'll totally get someone else to do it.
Right. Yeah. No. Hey, no. I think this.
That is a good question.
It's a great question. And that's a question I wouldn't be afraid to take the conference. You just go to the mic, hey, Madam Chairman, does this mean that all of us will get a new certificate now? My guess is...
I'd like one with that new logo.
How can you be grandfathered in, though? It doesn't... You can be... how can you replace your ordination certificate because you have 3 signatures from people who... may not be among us. Some may not be among the living anymore. That is such a good question, man.
And mine has Steve Babby and Joanne Lyon on it. I mean, those are pretty in the Wesleyan signature collection series. Those are pretty good signatures to have.
Yeah,
I don't know that I've interviewed Joanne Lyon all around the country. Don't have her autograph.
really.
I got her to autograph my. I'm kidding.
If you've ever attended an ordination service, and Dave, you obviously did. She signed your certificate. I am jealous of anyone who has been ordained under her. With what she does when she gives you that cross, and ties that into the worldwide church.
Yeah.
Wow.
Powerful. Mine's from Sierra Leone.
It's a very powerful moment in every ordination service. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, Dave, thanks for pinch hitting today, man.
Yeah, man.
I'm glad I could help. I don't know if it was any good, but thank you so much.
We hope it was helpful to you.
It actually was very informative to me. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah. As we're giving out thanks to our producer, Matthew TG. You don't see him, but he's behind the controls. There are a few of you that jumped into the chat room. We really appreciate that as well. We're just test running commitments. We're just seeing how committed. No, we're test running some of our new equipment. And Heath, always a pleasure, dude.
Yes. I'm excited, man. I'm excited. Yeah, today.
Happy birthday! Yeah, that's right.
Happy
Today's Heath's birthday. He's 51 today.
So
41.
So let's look to
yeah, please.
Can't hear TG. TG, thumbs up or thumbs down? How's everything running today? Yeah.
He's giving the thumbs up over there. So
TG said Steve Jobs could not have done a better job.
Well,
now my microphone is on.
Well, we
TG did
him
not
out.
say that.
We coaxed
I heard
him
it.
out.
I
did
it.
not.
Yep.
All right.
Hey, if you're watching this and you've enjoyed it, I would encourage you to go to the Wesleyan YouTube page. We've done 2 live conferences that were absolutely free. We did the Generation to Generation conference, and we did the Missional Discipleship conference that Dave was a very big part of.
Great interview.
And really rocked your world.
Yeah, the book, Renovation of the Church by Kent Carlson and Mike Lukin. Wow, what a book. Dave, had you read that before?
Oh, yeah. Oh, it rocked my world just like it rocked your world. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why I was the one that said, Jeremy Wick, we had an empty space, and I was like, well, let me see if I could get them. And we were able to get them, and it was great.
Yeah, boy, read that book. Yeah. All right, again, just close us out here, Heath.
Hey, we hope that you will join us on the Wesleyan YouTube page for General Conference. We'll be live streaming starting June the 4th through June the 8th. We'll be covering all the events. So if you're not able to attend General Conference in Buffalo, follow us, and
Please.
we will give you we will make you feel like you are there with Dave, experiencing this, what is going to be a historic event, an election of a new general superintendent, the retirement of Dr. Joanne Lyon. It is going to be a great time. And for Dave Johnson, Matthew TG, and Tony Casey, I'm Heath Mulliken, and we'll see you soon.